So you made a request for records. Tell me what you requested and when, so I can get that evidence into the record.
There had been several statements made over a period of time. Can you hear me? I'm
Yes,
sorry.
I can hear you.
Okay. Over a period of time, both in the press and thank you. Both
Thank
in
you
the
very
press
much.
and in other areas, meetings that were held outside the city hall, stuff like that. What was alleged by Ms. Mosby on the board was disparate treatment and essentially racism that was allegedly said or perpetuated on her by a couple of members of the Board of Education, in particular Mike Lyons, who was the chairman of the Board of Education. There were outward statements of this, that they were being left out of information shared by board members, that there was disparate treatment,
Okay.
and that it all was based on racism. There was also some public statements made that they had quote-unquote proof of it. And in one instance in particular, at a demonstration that was held outside City Hall to decry racism, they held up a folder or a manila envelope, whatever you may want to call it, saying that they had the proof within that envelope. Our request was very simple. If you have proof of racism and disparate treatment, and rather than just say it, show it. And this has led to a demonstration that was held in front of City Hall. An embarrassing moment for the city of Norwalk. The city was referred to as the Ferguson of Connecticut. It was also referred to as ground zero for racism in Connecticut. All this based on what is allegedly disparate treatment on the Board of Education against minority representatives of the community. So again, with that said, we simply said, well, if that's the case, show it to us. If you show it to us, we'll be able to resolve it. If it doesn't exist, then say that as well.
Okay.
That's why we're
So just from my understanding, how many members are on the Board of Education?
There's 9.
9 members, okay. And Mr. Toronto, are you a member of the Board of
No, I am
Education?
not.
Okay. So you made a request for records on April 1st, 2015, is that right?
That's correct.
And you asked for the records that Ms. Mosby had referred to as proof of, I'd written down harassment, disparate treatment, etc. And those were the records that you wanted copies, or you wanted to review them? What was
We
it?
wanted to see whatever she may have had. Whether she
So-
wanted to give us copies of it or the originals, that would have been fine.
Okay, so I thought you wanted, in your April 1st, 2015 letter, this is to request that you send me the copies. So
Yeah,
I think
that's-
that we have a request for
Right.
copies. Okay, so then after you made the request, what happened?
We received the letter of response a little bit late, but it was okay. And it spoke of a meeting that we had not mentioned. It had nothing to do with the incident at hand.
So are you referring to complainants B, which would be the third page of that exhibit? Is that the letter you're referring to?
Yes, it is.
Okay, all right, so I'm following you. Okay, so tell me what you took from the April 9th, 2015 letter.
Frankly, it was a pretty convoluted letter. It was
Okay.
difficult to follow. It sounded like a bunch of it was a smoke and mirrors situation. In no way did it address the original complaint. It appeared to try to sidestep it. And
But it did acknowledge the request.
did I acknowledge it?
The April 9th, 2015 letter from Ms. Mosby acknowledged your April 1st, 2015 request?
Yes, it did.
Okay. Okay, I'm sorry to interrupt you.
That's okay. I'm losing track here.
It's okay. So you received Ms. Mosby's April 9th, 2015 letter.
Right.
And then,
And then I responded again to the Freedom of Information Commission on April 15th.
right, okay, which is the top 2 pages of Exhibit B.
It is,
Okay.
yes. And I indicated in there things, for instance, as a misunderstanding of my request in the Employee law. The second and third paragraphs refer to an incident that, indicate that she doesn't understand my original request in the letter of OIC. I have not claimed that Ms. Mosby violated the public meetings section of the FOIA. My complaint was nothing to do with the Norwalk Board of Education meeting held on July 1st, 2014. I have no idea where that came from. So it was a non-response response.
Okay, so at this point, you haven't received any responsive letters, and you filed a complaint with the commission.
That's correct.
Is that pretty much the
That's it.
overview? Okay, thank you. Questions for Mrs. Shimano?
I don't have any questions.
Okay. Is there a witness that you want to call, or should I pass the case to the respondents to call a witness?
I would pass the response.
Oh, you're going to pass the case?
Yes.
Okay, so we're going to pass the case at 9:59, and I want to say your name right, Attorney
Lindauer.
Lindauer, okay. Mnemonic device there for myself. Attorney Lindauer, I'm going to pass the case to you.
Thank you.
Feel free to proceed.
Yes, I'd like to call my client Shirley Mosby.
Sure. Welcome. Thank you.
May I proceed?
Sure.
Thank you. Ms. Mosby, are you a member of the Norwalk Board of Education?
Yes,
And are you also a member of the Norwalk Branch NAACP?
yes,
Is that entity a private entity?
yes,
Does your membership in the NAACP have anything to do with your duties as a Norwalk Board of Education member?
no,
In June 2014, did you make a complaint to the Norwalk Branch NAACP?
yes,
And did your complaint pertain to your observations of the Norwalk Board of Education?
yes,
Were you the sole complainant?
no. Also was Natalia Rivas and Rosenberg, also Board of Education members.
Did you make your complaint to the NAACP in your official capacity as a member of the Norwalk Board of Education?
No,
Did some of the observations of Ms. Rivas and Ms. Murray predate your membership on the Board of Education?
yes,
Could you have made your complaint to the NAACP in your official capacity as a member of the Norwalk Board of Education?
no.
Why not?
Per our bylaws, board members are, board members.
That's okay.
Okay.
Yes.
Board members do not have authority except for at board meetings or when discharging assignments from the board.
Okay.
Board members have no authority,
To,
as in general, as a board. One individual senior board member has no authority. Unless all board members are together, that consists a board, and that's when it's considered a board.
okay, so to take board action, you need a board majority,
Yes.
is that right? Okay.
Yes,
So this action that you filed, in conjunction with Ms. Rivas and Ms., is it Murray?
Ms. Murray.
That was something outside of BOE business?
Right, individual, right.
And Ms. Mosby, showing you what has been marked as Respondent's Exhibit A, which I believe Mr. Toronto has a copy of that. Do you know what this document is?
Yes,
What is this?
it's our board bylaws.
Okay.
Exhibit A or exhibit respondents 1?
I'm sorry, Respondent's 1. Thank you.
Here we go.
And turning to section 9010 of this document, is this what you were just describing, where it says that board members have no authority except at a board meeting or when discharging an assignment made by the board?
Correct, yes.
And let's just wait to make sure everyone's on the same page.
There's an underline on that page, is that right?
Yes, and
Okay.
I would note for the record, Ms. Mosby, you did not make that underline on that page, did you?
No, I did
I'll
not.
just note the commission didn't do it either, so we're clear.
Just for the record, that's actually how it prints off the Board of Education website.
Okay.
And Ms. Mosby, you're looking at that limits of authority section?
Yes,
Okay. And so your complaint to the NAACP falls into neither of those categories. Neither is it something that was enacted at a board meeting, nor was it a discharge of an assignment made by the board.
correct.
Now, turning back to section 9000, subsection A, as well as subsection B of Exhibit 1, there's a section titled Duties. Do you see that section?
Yes,
Okay. And this section sets forth the duties of the Board of Education.
yes,
Now, does making a complaint of discrimination to a private entity such as the NAACP fall within any of the duties listed on those 2 pages?
no,
When you made your complaint to the NAACP, did you use Board of Education time in making that complaint?
No,
Did anyone from the Norwalk Board of Education ask you to make the complaint to the NAACP?
no,
Did the Board of Education fund your complaint to the NAACP?
no,
Did the Board of Education have any involvement whatsoever in your making the complaint to the NAACP?
no,
Did you ever make a complaint of discrimination directly to the Norwalk Board of Education?
no,
Did you ever ask that the complaint made with the NAACP be brought to the attention of the Board of Education?
no,
Was the complaint ever brought to the attention of the Board of Education?
a representative of the NWCP attended a board meeting and made a request for a meeting to discuss the complaint, but the chair of the board refused to meet.
So was the matter ever actually discussed at any Board of Ed?
Could you say that one more time for me? I'm sorry. So the question was it ever brought to the board's attention?
Yes.
Is that the question?
Yes.
And then the answer was?
A representative of the NWCP came to a board meeting
Okay,
and requested a meeting to discuss the complaint.
okay.
But the board chair refused that request of that meeting.
Oh, all right, thank you.
And by the way, did you ask that representative to attend the board meeting?
No. It's,
They just showed up.
yeah, no, they showed up because the complaint was filed with the NWCP and that's their,
And they showed up at a public meeting.
right, they
and
showed
said,
up, right, they
"Let's
showed up,
talk
so,
about this in some forum."
yes, so it was, the complaint was filed with the NWCP and the person came out, represented NWCP at the meeting.
Got
It's
it.
part of their responsibility.
Was the NAACP complaint ever placed on the Board of Education agenda?
No, and it never was.
Did you compile some documents, public or otherwise, related to your NAACP complaint?
Yes,
Okay. And did those documents include documents related to executive session meetings?
yes,
Did some of those documents relate to the evaluation of a superintendent?
yes,
Did they include documents not related to the Board of Education, such as newspaper articles?
yes,
Was the NAACP ever given a copy of those documents to keep?
no,
Now, with regards to the documents compiled by Ms. Rebus and Ms. Murray, if any, are you able to speak to those documents?
no.
Why not?
I was not involved with the compiling of those documents, nor did I view those documents as evidence or proof of my complaint.
Okay.
And you heard Mr. Toronto testify that at a rally of some sort, someone held up an envelope and said that it contained proof of discrimination. Did you ever hold up an envelope and say that it contained proof of discrimination?
No,
I don't have any further questions
So
from Ms.
so some of the documents that you say you gathered, you said you didn't provide copies to the NAACP. Is that your testimony?
right,
Okay. Some of the documents that you gathered were outside of the public record, and some of the documents were not outside of the public record. Is that your testimony?
yes,
So some of the documents would be considered public records, while others would be records that you are, like you said, newspaper articles that
documents that I assembled
you
on
assembled
my own time.
on your own time, and that you keep outside of your BOE office or duties or.
Correct.
Okay, and but let's, so that's good to know. The records, do you think that some of the records that you compiled would be considered public records in that they are maintained by a public agency or somehow maintained by the BOE?
Some of the documents dealt with executive sessions.
They dealt with it, what went on in executive session.
Exactly.
So what kind of documents were they? Don't tell me what they said, but how were they, what kind of documents were they created? Were they emails? Were they records, handwritten notes? What are we talking about?
All of the above.
Okay, so they were documents that were brought into executive session by BOE members discussing it, so exempt documents that were brought into executive session, is that what we're?
Yes, there were documents that are exempt, I believe they're exempt.
Exempt,
Because
that would
they
be
discuss,
that
right.
would be the way to get them into executive session, was if they were exempt from disclosure, you could take
Yes.
in an exempt document and discuss it.
In regards to the executive sessions.
Okay, so those documents are kind of different from those documents you assembled on your own time and didn't really bring into work. Those exempt documents are, I think your testimony is that they're public records, but they're exempt public records?
Yes.
Okay, all right. So we have some exempt public records. Anything else that I need to know from Ms. Mosby? Very helpful. Counsel?
There's nothing that I can think of.
Okay, so we have testimony that there's two categories of records. I think it's pretty convincing testimony that some of these records were things she did outside of her public office. Other records are public documents that the witness is testifying she believes are exempt from disclosure. What we can do is you can move to have me review them in camera. I just want to put that out there. The ones that are exempt, I would be able to look at to confirm that they are exempt. But I'm going to turn it over to you to cross, Mr. Toronto, okay?
Okay. I'd like to start this out by saying that we did already dismiss the Board of Education. At no time did we claim the Board of Education did anything wrong.
Right.
So when Ms. Mosby took her actions, we didn't charge the Board of Education with anything wrongdoing. We charged Ms. Mosby.
Right.
And her statement that a lot of this stuff had no connection with the Board of Education is actually correct. These are her own personal thoughts, her own allegations, her own statements that there's racism involved.
But do you have questions for the witness? Because we're on
I'm
cross.
making my own statement. I can't do that.
Oh, well, you kind of already did
Okay,
in
then
your
I'll
direct.
go from there, right. Ms. Mosby, who was it that held up the envelope saying that there was proof of racial allegations?
That did not happen.
That did. Do you know Brenda Penn Williams?
Yes.
Okay, is she on film actually holding it up? Is she actually quoted in the press as having said that they have proof?
I cannot speak to that because I have not seen anything.
So you haven't read any reports on your own allegations?
I have not seen anything with Brenda Penn Williams holding up a folder.
Okay. Do you know State Representative Bruce Morris?
Yes, I do.
Has Bruce Morris seen any alleged proof?
No.
Okay, because he did state to me that he did, so I'm just wondering, is it
I'm just gonna remind you we're
I
on
got you.
cross. You're
Okay.
gonna ask questions.
Help me out, I'm not an attorney.
Okay. So you're gonna ask, so Ms. Mosby testified,
Okay.
and now you're examining that
Okay.
testimony through
Ms. Mosby,
cross-examination.
have you ever made a statement or a claim to the NAACP, to the press, to anyone else, of disparate treatment on the Board of Education based on racist behavior?
Based on discrimination, not racist behavior. And the claim was to, it was a private complaint with two other board members stating the treatment that was of a discriminatory nature. We never said anything about racism or racist.
But, I'm sorry, I just wanna focus you. My sole purpose today is you made a public records request, and you didn't get any records in response to that request. So my job is to kind of get the lay of the land with regard to the
Okay.
records,
All right, let me go back to the
and
records.
then determine whether there are records that are responsive and
Okay.
whether or not they're exempt from disclosure.
Ms.
So,
Mosby, I'll do that.
Okay.
All right. Ms. Mosby, do you have any emails back and forth between yourself and other board members, including the chairman of the board, Mike Lyons, in reference to this,
I have, in reference to what?
to your claims?
No, we've never, as stated in my testimony, we did not address this because it was never on the board agenda. It was never brought up in any board
I'm not
meetings.
talking about the
And
board,
we,
ma'am. I'm not talking about the board. I'm dismissing the board. I'm not saying you did it on the board. I'm asking you if you had any emails back and forth with Mike Lyons or any of the other board members discussing your behavior or the allegations you may have had.
no, not, I have emails that goes between board members.
Okay, are
But
they,
in-
are they
but-
executive session?
Just let her finish, please.
Thank
Let her
you.
answer.
Thank you.
Let her
Okay.
answer.
I have, there's emails because we're board members that go, but addressing this complaint here, there wasn't anything going, and there wasn't any emails that went between us on this complaint here. The NWC people came, they asked for a meeting. Mr. Lyons said no, he did not want to meet. That was it. If there wasn't any emails that came from Mr. Lyons to me, or me to Mr. Lyons, or any other board in regards to this situation here.
So if I
let me
produce
just
them,
ask, a question.
Yes.
In your request for records, you say that you want all records, including emails that were received or sent by Ms. Mosby, which Ms. Mosby has referred to as proof of discrimination against certain categories of women on the Board of Education, Black and Hispanic women. Have you ever referred to any documents as proof of discrimination that do you, in terms of what the request is asking for?
The only time, if I recall, there was anything of proof was with Fox CT when there was a rally about a derogatory statement that was made towards me as Mosby girl who cried black. And I said that, people look into it, there's proof that's going to show, because there's an indicator right there of the discriminatory treatment that we are, women of color are subjected to.
So, Mr. Toronto, I know that, I don't know if it's in this one or in the other one, there was some talk about someone holding up an envelope. I'm
Yes.
getting the feeling that it wasn't Mrs. Mosby
No, it's not.
who held up, is that right?
That is correct.
Okay, so when I try to ask the witness about records that were compiled,
Mhm.
I don't think that we're gonna get Miss Mosby to tell us that she's got this binder that is supposedly out there. I don't know who compiled the binder. Did you compile it?
I have a notebook
Okay,
that was comprised, that consists of documents that I put together in my own free time, not as a board member, but as an individual person and not submitted to any government agency at all. And
so they didn't come from the government, they didn't issue between members of a public agency.
No, it was just my own, it's a document that contains my information.
Okay,
And it includes some emails, and those are emails we talked about that are part of the
executive
exempt.
session.
Yes.
Okay, so, I mean,
They're not.
well, I mean, I can only take the testimony from the
Right.
witness,
Mhm.
and I can ask the witness to provide me with the records that she claims are exempt.
I would accept that.
Would you like me to look at
I
the
would love
public
you to do
records that
that.
are claimed to be exempt? So council
Yes.
would have to prepare, it's very, I can get you
Yeah,
the
I can get it
index.
by
I
tomorrow.
think
No,
you
no,
have-
you don't
I
have
do
to
have a
get it by
question,
tomorrow.
ma'am.
But, I mean, I'm glad to let you examine Ms.
Mhm.
Mosby, and I'm glad to take the evidence in, but, all I can do is order the respondents to produce the records that they claim are exempt
Question, please?
to the commission for an in-camera review.
Okay.
I can do that for you.
How do I know that you're getting all the records?
Well, I'm trusting counsel and Ms.
Really?
Mosby to, I'm ordering them to give me the records that they claim are exempt public records. And
Okay.
I'm gonna,
I don't have your same faith.
well, unless and until I have a reason not to believe witnesses who are testifying here under oath,
Mhm.
I'm gonna believe them.
Okay.
And I have counsel who's gonna put the index together for me, and so I have no reason to disbelieve anybody here,
Fair
okay? More questions for Ms. Mosby. Do you have any other questions?
Well, we're going to go back to the ones about the emails again. I actually have copies of emails that are going back and forth, and I assume that's what she has. So I dispute the fact that Ms. Mosby says that. So Ms. Mosby, you're
You
claiming
dispute-
that these emails,
You dispute what fact?
that these are executive session emails.
Well, I don't
These-
know. I don't know what I'm gonna receive in camera. I mean,
Right.
I can look at them, and if they're exempt, they'll tell me why they're exempt, and if they're not exempt,
Fair
I
enough.
will issue a written recommendation saying I think they could be disclosed, and that's up to my commission.
Okay.
But I can only take the records that they're
Mhm.
gonna turn into me in camera, and examine them,
Okay.
okay?
Ms. Mosby, is Brenda Penn Williams a very close friend of yours?
Very close.
Well, let me rephrase that.
Well, how is that
Well,
helpful to me, though? How
because it
does
was
that?
she who held up the booklet that I assume is hers. You're trying to separate Ms. Mosby
I don't
from
know,
that.
I don't even have any testimony about who this woman is.
Okay.
Who is,
That's what I'm trying to get out here.
okay.
Okay. Can you tell me who Brenda Penn Williams is, Ms. Mosby?
Brenda Penn Williams is the legal redress chair of the NAACP.
Okay, so
Okay.
counsel?
Is that Ms. Mosby where you filed your complaint of racism?
She's not an attorney, she's just a legal redress chair
Mhm.
of the
Okay,
NAACP.
okay.
Is she the one you filed your complaint with the NAACP?
I found
I-
myself into.
I don't even know if I need that.
Thank
I mean,
you.
how does that help me? I know you're trying to find out,
Trying to get to a point.
okay. Can you ask a different question?
No.
So you want to know if Miss Mosby filed her complaint with this particular person at the
Yes, it's going
NAACP?
somewhere.
Okay. I don't know how that helps me understand what records there
Okay,
are.
because what I'm trying to show you here, and I think you understand, but I understand your restrictions also, is that Ms. Mosby is tiptoeing around the tulips here. There are people who have been speaking on her behalf while she stands there. There are people who are representing her. She has orchestrated a lot of this in our estimation. And by using other people to use her words and claim her evidence in our,
But I don't think she's doing that,
I
though.
believe she is.
I don't think she's saying that what you've requested is different from what she, first of all, I think her testimony was, if I recall, that she didn't give copies of these records to the NAACP.
Correct.
So, if a member of the NAACP has records, and Ms. Mosby's testimony is that she didn't provide records to the NAACP, I don't think it matters to me what a member of the NAACP held up.
can you tell me whether a member of the NAACP got those records in that they held up?
Well, I know they
There's a
didn't.
gap there somewhere.
Well, I know from the testimony they didn't get them from this witness.
Well-
Do you know where a member of the
I
NAACP who held up an envelope got
No
those
idea.
records?
Not a clue. Okay,
Well-
so the information that Ms. Mosby had on these
The
emails.
information that Ms. Mosby has is
Mhm.
the only thing that I have jurisdiction over
Okay.
to ask that it be filed with the commission
Then I would
in
request you do that,
camera.
and I'll end my cross-examination.
Okay. Closing statements. Do you want to say anything else?
If I were to find emails, I probably shouldn't start with the word if, because it makes it a question, correct? Were I to find emails that counter what Ms. Mosby says regarding executive session and some of the allegations she's made, would that be acceptable to this panel at some point? Would you be able to include that?
Well, today, like I said at the opening, today is the day for evidence.
Okay.
So, I mean, I have all of the evidence. I'm gonna close out 2015-261. I honestly don't know that we're gonna get through 2015-281. We're gonna try. But I would need it, I don't think that, I need to see what I get in camera.
Fair enough.
Okay? All right,
Okay.
thank you. Counsel?
Yes, just a couple minutes of argument, if that's okay. Thank you. Any complaint made by Ms. Mosby of discrimination was not made as part of Ms. Mosby's official business as a member of the Board of Education, as she's testified, and therefore is in and of itself not subject to the Freedom of Information Act. Ms. Mosby made a complaint to the NAACP, of which she's a member, which is an organization which is not subject to FOI. Ms. Mosby did not make a complaint to the Board of Education. Moreover, any complaint that Ms. Mosby made was not made in her official capacity as a Board of Education member. If a private citizen were to make a complaint of discrimination to a private entity and utilized public records, that person wouldn't be subject to an FOI request, and the same logic should apply here. The fact that Ms. Mosby is a Board of Education member doesn't mean that all of her doings are subject to a Freedom of Information request. It only means that those doings that are part of her official business are subject to a Freedom of Information request. In Fromer v. Freedom of Information Commission, that's a 90 Connecticut Appellate 101 of 2005 case, our appellate court affirmed a decision from a trial court dismissing an appeal for a denial of a request for documents made to instructors at a state university. And in determining whether the instructors constituted a public agency for purposes of the Freedom of Information Act, the appellate court found that the trial court had properly evaluated 4 criteria set forth in a Supreme Court case, Board of Trustees v. Freedom of Information Commission, 181 Connecticut Supreme Court, 544, a 1980 case. And the 4 criteria to be evaluated are first, does
Can I
the
just get that second site from you again?
Sure,
181,
Conn, 544, 1980.
thank you.
The 4 criteria to evaluate. First, does the entity, or in this case, Ms. Mosby, perform a governmental function? Governmental function is defined by our statute as the administration or management of a program of a public agency where 3 things occur. The person receives funding from the public agency is involved in or regulates to a significant extent such person's administration or management of the program, and the person participates in the formulation of governmental policies or decisions in connection with the administration or management of the program. In this case, as they found in Fromer, Ms. Mosby was not performing a governmental function in making her NAACP complaint. The second criteria to evaluate is the level of governmental funding. Ms. Mosby was not compensated, as she testified, by the government for making her NAACP complaint. The third criteria is the extent of government involvement or regulation. The government, in this case the Board of Education, does not control Ms. Mosby's day-to-day activities. She was not required to make the NAACP complaint, and the government Board of Education was not involved in that complaint in any way. And fourth criteria, whether the entity was created by the government. Ms. Mosby was not created by the government. She's just a Board of Education member. So just as in Fromer, Ms. Mosby is not subject to this FOI request because she was not acting as a public agency or the functional equivalent of a public agency. The claim of discrimination falls well outside the duties of a Board of Education member, as stated in the Board of Education bylaws that we have taken a look at. The bylaws set forth 6 categories of duties. A complaint for discrimination to a private entity cannot reasonably be encompassed within any of those categories. And the bylaws, moreover, specifically state that the Board of Education does not exist between meetings and that board members have no authority except at a board meeting or when discharging an assignment made by the board, which is not the case here. And finally, with regards to the Freedom of Information Act, the definition of public records or files means any recorded data or information relating to the conduct of the public's business. A complaint of discrimination does not relate to the conduct of the public's business. The NAACP complaint was never part of the public record. It was never placed on the agenda. It was never addressed by the Board of Education. I know that you are going to be reviewing the documents that we're submitting in camera, and I would also note that even if the Commission finds that Ms. Mosby did act in some way as a public agency, certain documents that she compiled would be exempt from FOI as they relate to executive sessions.
Okay, so let me see if I can clarify one thing. Some of the documents that I'm going to receive in camera, the documents that are in Ms. Mosby's possession that are public records that are come from the, is it your argument that those records are somehow not public records if Ms. Mosby is using them to do private activity? So does the nature of the record, I just want to make sure, because I have asked you to give them to me in cameras so that I can see that if they were public records that were brought into executive session, I'm assuming they were for some reason exempt if they came into executive session. But does the analysis of whether or not you can get at those records, does it change if, say, in my office here as an FOI attorney, I'm working with records, but if for some reason in my private life I take a record that's a public record and I do something with it, like file a federal lawsuit, does that somehow not allow someone to make an FOI request for that record?
Well, I think that if you had submitted that record to a governmental agency, certainly the governmental agency could be requested to provide those records. But in the instance where a private citizen is making a complaint and actually never provided the records to the NAACP to keep, while the records themselves perhaps standing alone could be considered public records, although quite possibly exempt, the actual complaint that was made to the NAACP and Ms. Mosby's doings outside of the Board of Education aren't subject to FOI.
Right, so what I'm trying to get at is the in-camera order is asking you to give me documents that Ms. Mosby would have come across as a member of the BOE that have been somehow claimed to be exempt from public disclosure, but responsive to this request. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay, all right. Anything else?
I don't have anything further to add.
We're going to close this one out at 10:30. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. And with that, Ms. Chapman, you've already taken the oath, so we're ahead of the game here. I will ask you to tell me what brings us here today.
What brings us here today is that a allegation was made that upset the public that certain board members had been engaging in disparate treatment, which is, the word racism was never used, but it's there, and everybody knows it. And in my role as a journalist, I would like to illuminate that complaint and hopefully bring it to some closure for the public.
Okay.
And I sent an FOI request to Ms. Mosby, which I was told these records would be public.
So you sent, when did you send that request? Is that the March 29th, 2015 email that's
Yes.
referred to in Complainants A?
Yes.
Thank you. So you sent that email to Ms. Mosby at a couple of different email addresses, is that right?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. I'm sorry to interrupt, I just need
No,
to get this into the record.
Please.
Go ahead.
I also attempted to speak to her at a board meeting because I had gotten no acknowledgement, and she turned her head and refused to speak to me, even though I clearly said my FOI request. She also instructed Ms. Rivas not to speak to me. I did not file a complaint against Ms. Rivas because I obtained evidence that suggested that she had never read the email, so I didn't feel that it was warranted.
Okay.
I would like to-
And for that reason, you didn't object to me letting the Board of Education out of this case?
That's correct.
Thank you. So, what else do I need to know? So you made a request. Tell me what you asked for in that email, that March 29th, 2015
Okay.
email.
I've been led to believe that she has collected evidence to support this complaint that was made. That includes public emails, and that would therefore be subject to FOI.
Okay.
Um,
So just as I did with Mr. Toronto's case in 2015-261, I think we're talking about the same group of records, and if you made a motion for me to order the respondents to submit the public records to submit them to the commission in camera, I could take those records, I could look at those records, and I could determine if those records are exempt public records or they're records that aren't exempt. Is that a motion that you'd want to make today?
Yes, except I'd like you to explain to me what in-camera means.
In camera means that it would be for my eyes only and my commissioner's eyes, unless and until the Freedom of Information Commission determines that the claim is that these records are exempt.
Uh-huh.
So when we have a claim that records are exempt from disclosure, we take those records in camera and we look at them, and we determine whether or not, the burden of proof of showing that they're exempt has been met. And I would make a recommendation to my commission, and the commissioners themselves would go and look, and then the commission would rule as to whether they should be disclosed or whether they were
Okay.
exempt, okay?
That's fine, yes.
Okay.
Please do that.
So I would grant that motion. The only thing that I'm thinking of at this point in the hearing is that we have an allegation that the records are exempt because they went into executive session. We really don't know the basis of the exemption, and I just want to, seems to me we may need to gather again, because I would need evidence as to why those records are exempt, and I don't have that here today. I have a claim that they're exempt, but exempt for what purpose? You know what I mean? Is it strategy negotiations with respect to, a pending litigation? Is it? So I would need evidence as to why the records are exempt from disclosure, and that would be on the index, but I wouldn't have any evidence in the record as we have it today. So I just throw that out there.
Okay.
I will grant your motion to take the public records in camera and look at
Okay.
them, okay? And my commissioners would also look at them. So Is there anything else as far as your direct testimony that you want to tell me? You made a request.
Right.
You didn't get a
I did
response.
not have never gotten a response.
And so you filed a
I
complaint.
tried to get a response in person, yes, I filed a complaint.
Got it. Thank you. So, you know that counsel for Ms. Mosby has asked me to incorporate the testimony that Ms. Mosby gave in Mr. Toronto's case, 2015-261, into this case as a time-saving measure. You didn't object, and I did do that. So, do you want to re-examine your witness, or do you want me to just turn it over cross?
I think it's fine just to turn it over.
Okay.
Questions for Ms. Mosby?
As a Norfolk Board of Education member, are you volunteering?
Is she a volunteer?
Yes,
Is that the question?
That's the question.
I was elected to sit on the board. I'm not sure if elections and board, is part of volunteering, but I'm there to serve the board, I'm there to serve the children of the board, so I'm not sure how volunteering and being elected to the position.
Now, you paid as a Board of Education member,
No,
okay? Does anybody keep track of your time?
no,
Do you have a Board of Education office?
no.
Did you receive the email I sent you asking for this evidence?
I'm just going to show you what's been marked as complaint. It's A, second page there, which references this March 29th, 2015 email. Counsel, you have a copy of this, right?
Yes. Yes,
Okay, so you received the email. Thank you.
yes.
Okay. On July 1st, at the Board of Education meeting where the NAACP members came and the Brendan Von Williams major complaint public, did you walk into the board room with the other NAACP members?
I walked,
I'm sorry.
I don't understand the relevance to
The
the
relevance
question.
is that she's claiming that her complaint was not made in her official capacity as a Board of Education member. However, she arrived with everybody else there, and she's denying that she knew that they would make the complaint, but I saw them all walk in together. And
But really, this is a request, just let me give you my spin on this. This is a request for public records. So whether or not Ms. Mosby has associated at certain meetings with certain people is really not helpful to me. Like I said before, I need to find out, you made a request for records. There are some public records within of what you've requested. There's a claim that they're exempt. I'm going to have to look at those. We may have to come back and get some more evidence. I don't know exactly right at this point what the exemption is, whether they will sustain itself when I look at them or not. But so my focus is on public records and not on associations. It doesn't really help me, I don't think, decide what the realm of records is. So I'm going to sustain the objection.
okay. Did you know a complaint would be made?
This one you mean here?
No, what about the NAACP complaint to the board?
Did she know?
That Brenda Van Williams would come in and announce to everyone that a complaint of disparate treatment had been alleged.
Again, I don't see the relevance.
It really doesn't help me. I'm going to have to sustain the objection. It really doesn't help me decide an issue that's really in front of the commission by way of your public records request. One thing I did want to mention in terms of this request is that when I read what's been marked as complainants A, it looked like a request for access as opposed to copies.
That's correct.
That's right?
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
I wanted to see what they were and be able to read them.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. You wanted to review. You
Right.
wanted to review the records. You weren't asking for them to
Notes.
make you.
Right.
Gotcha. Okay. I noticed that.
Okay. All right. My last concept is did you swear that documents kept in, that were presented in executive session would remain secret. In other words, the executive session documents are not meant for the public.
They're, well, they're,
Did she swear to who?
Well, as part of being a Board of Education member.
I'm not seeing the relevance.
so what's the point of the question? Let me see if I can follow.
My point of the question is that they would be exempt, but she set them aside as evidence to be used in public, and therefore my question is, are they still exempt, given that they were meant to be exposed?
I don't
She
think
has them as access in her capacity as a Board of Education member,
Right.
right, and that's the only way she has them, and yet she's saying the complaint is not being made in her capacity as a Board of Education member. There's no other way she would have
I
them.
think the key point is that Ms. Mosby said she didn't provide any records to the NAACP.
Okay.
Do you see what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
she has compiled some records. Some of those records are admitted, she said that some of them are public, some of them came to her by way of her position as a BOE member. Some of them she compiled on her own time. What I've done is I've asked, I've ordered the respondents to produce those public portion of those records to me in camera so that I can take a look at them.
Okay.
Okay?
Yeah.
But I don't think that there's any indication in this record that records that are for whatever reason claimed to be exempt have been disclosed. I don't see that.
Okay.
Okay? On this record, I don't see it because the testimony was what it was. Follow-up,
I don't have any questions.
closing statements. I can't believe we got through it. We did good. We did good.
I'm not sure how this proceeding works, but I kind of object that I wasn't given this information that the bylaws would be part of the presentation. As I was not given the time to prepare a argument based upon that.
Okay, so let me do this so that you raise that, and I'll do that for Mr. Toronto. If anybody wants to file, so we're going to give the respondents 2 weeks to file the in-camera records. We're going to have to do 2 indexes, even if it's the same records. We're going to put one, we're going to lock one up in 2015, 261. We're going to lock another index attached to records up in 2015, 281. If after that 2-week period, any party, Mr. Toronto or you, Ms. Chapman, or counsel for Ms. Mosby wants to file a brief, kind of to sum up their position with regard to the case, I'm certainly glad to take briefs.
Okay.
I would probably set the date right now. I don't have any kind of electronic gadget with me. So 2 weeks from today for in-camera, and then 2 weeks from the filing of the in-camera for briefs. I can solidify those dates if you just give me a second after the hearing. So if you wanted to file something that, with regard to your position in this case, I'd be glad to take it.
Okay.
Anybody with a gadget might want to throw the dates out, but I can put those dates in. Today is the 20th, so 2 weeks from today, it's going to be a little difficult for me. I'll get the dates before we leave. September 3rd, and then from September 3rd. Briefs by September 17th. Is that okay? Just can someone confirm that September 3rd is not? Yeah. I don't think it is. September 17th.
Have my phone turned on, I'm sorry.
Well, let's do this. In camera by September 3rd, unless it falls on a weekend. If it does fall on a weekend, we'll push it to Monday. Briefs by September 17th, unless that falls on a weekend, and if it does, we'll push that to Monday. Okay? So that makes it easy.
Okay.
Tell me what you want to say. Anything else?
Yeah, I just question the idea that this was done on her own time, since no one's keeping track of her time. As a Board of Education member, she's not on any clock, and since she's using documents that she only has access to as a Board of Education member, I question the idea that this was not done as a Board of Education member.
Thank you.
Okay.
Counsel.
Thank you. I would ask that my comments with regards to Mr. Toronto's complaint also be taken as part of this matter, so I don't have to repeat those.
Objections?
No.
Okay. We're going to close it out at 10:56. So we have the dates. I will get the index for counsel, and then after the filing of the in-camera records, if I need something that I don't have, I may reopen one or both of the hearings. okay?
Thank
All right,
you.
may have to have you back. Thank you so much. We're going to close it out at 10:57.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.